In today's business world, being an average CEO is no longer an option. That's why we're committed to equipping you with the resources and the tactics necessary to not just survive, but to thrive. You're listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline podcast, where we are more than just a voice in the crowd.
Chanda, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're really glad to have you. We have Chanda Coston on today, and we're going to be talking about reinventing business that fits your current season. And Chanda has reinvented and pivoted many times, so we're very glad to be here with you. Chanda, can you kick us off by just telling our audience about yourself and your journey and a little bit about your current career path?
Absolutely. So I'll go backwards. I'm currently a business coach and strategist for women around 40-ish. And I chose that niche specifically because that is exactly where I am. And as you mentioned, I am a professional pivoter. I have pivoted quite a few times, and it landed me here. So to give you a little bit of background, I started off in the military, trying to get away from an abusive marriage with three young girls, and that went fairly well. I had a great career, but decided I wanted to stay home with the kids. So I got out the military, went to corporate, and had a great career there. Took that military bearing and turned it into professionalism. And I'm very type A, and so I thrived in that space. And even went back to government for a little bit and decided I think I like contracting better, and decided I wanted to do it for myself. And so stepped into entrepreneurship the first bit, and landed contracts, paid the bills, but lost my brother to gun violence and realized that if my life was to end today, would I be happy? Unfortunately, but fortunately, I went into the nonprofit space and stepped into teaching and coaching and mentoring and realized like, aha, I think I found my thing. And so that started me on my journey to actually coaching. So here we are. But it's been a journey. Well worth
Yeah,
it.
I certainly think so. And especially coming, like you said, from an abusive marriage and then so tragically losing your brother to gun violence. Those are definitely hard things to overcome. And we're so glad that you're on the other side and thriving. For someone, what would usually signal for someone that it's time to pivot instead of just kind of pushing harder and pushing through their current season, which so many of us tend to do. We think if we can just push through, it'll be fine.
I think the number one thing I have to remind my clients is like give yourself permission to change your mind. If you no longer find that the thing that you used to love, you're still passionate about, if it is like dragging, you no longer found joy in it, try to identify why, but give yourself permission, like, okay, maybe I need to change, or maybe I need to give this particular task to someone else to do. But there's always markers in your life, right? If you're finding you're burnt out, you're tired, you're cranky, you're not eating well, you just can't seem to get everything done. Those are typical signs of like, okay, something needs to change. If you're in a career path, like I was really good in government contracting as a logistics program manager. I'm good with systems and structure and logical thinking and being analytical and starting things and finishing things and managing all the pieces. But it did not give me like that warm and fuzzy feeling, right? And so I was like, okay, once my kids grew up, I was responsible and I was an empty nester. I was like, okay, now what about me, right? And so I was like, okay, let me do the thing that I feel like serves me best, but also serves other people. And so, but those are definitely markers if you find yourself in those situations. And so,
Yeah. And I think a lot of the times when you can be in those situations, I know that running our virtual assistant business, we have run into hundreds of clients that have lots of ideas going on, and they don't have enough execution clarity.
mhm.
I think a lot of our audience can relate with that, that they just have too many ideas, too many things happening, and they don't know where to go. So how do you help people prioritize that, and how can they get through to the other side?
I typically call it a compass clarity framework. And it's like, okay, well, what is this? You have a list of things, but let's score them, right? So, what is the thing that you like to do? What is the thing that you're good at, right? What is the thing that solves a problem for people and that they will pay for? And so, scoring those four things and then having further conversations. And then, of course, does it fit the season of your life, which I think is one of the most important ones. But scoring those different questions along those lines, okay, well, let's talk about what that looks like for you to make sense. Because if you don't want to do it, it's going to be hard to do, right? If you can't make
Yeah.
money at it, what's the point of the business, right? And so if it doesn't fit your life, it's going to be stressful because you're always going to be trying to find more capacity. And so it's having those conversations around those particular questions. Say, okay, we got all these things, but which ones make sense? And then let's narrow it down and create a plan of action for that, for sure.
So you're saying like literally a compass, like a circle with, oh, wow, that's great. I like that. I love the visual there.
Sure.
Love that visual. I just want to pivot for a second because I know this is one of your several areas of expertise. And especially for entrepreneurs, I think that this is a big issue when it's hard to tell the difference between temporary resistance versus an actual misalignment. I need to stop doing this. I need to pivot versus that the temporary. And I think that they're probably making a lot of mistakes in there with those sort of changes. So kind of what mistakes are you seeing them make when their energy or bandwidth or alignment changes? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
For sure. A lot of times they think they have to do everything at once and then they need to have it all figured out before they move forward. And so, one, clarity, like you said, is really key as far as moving forward. But then outside of that, it is making sure you're doing the things that are actually geared towards moving your goals forward and not just running in place, is what I call it. Which
Yes.
a lot of clients do. And so when they say, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what to do, I don't have enough time, I'm like, well, let's look at your calendar. Let's do an audit. Let's see how you're spending your time. Let's see if there's ways to incorporate, I call it automate, delegate, or eliminate, right? Let's see if we can incorporate some systems so we can group some time, which talks about time management strategies because I think I look at a lot of things as systems, but I think time is another thing that we manage by design, right? That's required for anyone to have success. And so it's giving them those frameworks and those strategies to actually make impact so that they can actually become productive and execute in their business instead of managing chaos or spaghetti on the wall. And if you remove that part of it, then a lot of times they'll be able to tell you like, okay, now if you're not executing on what's going on, like what's the problem? Is it because it doesn't fit your season because you have competing priorities? Like for my particular demographic, I have two aging parents, I have five adult kids, I have four grandchildren, I have my own life, I have a puppy, right? No, but
Yeah.
it becomes where it's like, okay, well, I have these things, and I clearly can't say I'm not going to be there for my aging mom, right? And so does this business fit? Is it aligned to my life at this moment, or should I look at a new way to do the business? Because you don't necessarily have to leave it. Sometimes you just need to realign it or restructure it, or bring in automations where you are actually doing everything. Are you the single point of failure in your business, or do you have a team? And what does your processes and your SOPs look like? Like all those pieces are in place. But it's really just kind of going down the line with the checklist and making sure that the client is not just prepared and they have the back end piece in place, but also that on the front end of their life, as far as all of the personal things, that it makes sense because it has to make sense. So
Yeah. And do you ever see that there's resistance to sort of developing those systems or even removing things from their plate, like delegating something, automating? Do you see resistance
the
in that
delegation,
aspect?
yes,
Yeah,
more
I
than
do too.
anything.
That's why I was curious.
Yes, they're always very grateful for the systems, right? Because
Mhm.
in a sense, it still gives them ownership. But when I'm like, okay, we need to delegate, we need to come away from these things and maybe see if there's a system that can help you, or if you're willing to bring on an assistant or an analyst or, a team. And they're like, well, and so we have to have the hard conversation around you can't scale a business if you're the single point of failure. If all you have is your 24 hours realistically and grow, you're gonna have to look at ways that you can lever time, energy, resources, funding, things like that. And so, and asking them like, how bad do you really want it? If we're not delegating and you're gonna grow, then what does that look like? Um,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, So I know that, you're talking about your own life and how that mirrors a lot of your clients' lives. And I see that with a lot of our clients too. Maybe you're taking care of young children or grandchildren or aging parents and other things happen in your life. And so how do you build a business that really supports your life and your other priorities instead of absolutely consuming it?
Going back to all of those strategies that we just talked about. And so most of them will say at some point, there's like, well, how does your week look? And I'll say, oh, I got the CEO theme days and I do the task batch and I do the Pomodoro and the time blocking. And they're like, oh my God, like, does that really work? And I'm like, absolutely. And so it goes back to consistency and structure and everything being by design by bringing that system in, and then you will have the freedom, but you have to be open to it. But most of them are like immediately at some point, they're like, okay, like, how are you doing all these things? I travel a lot. So I'm location independent. But I'm very open with my clients around what's going on because I feel like they need to be situationally aware. Like, I'm not in a bubble. My life is not perfect, you know, kids are
Yeah.
scattered. But they're like, well, so how are you dealing with that? Like one daughter's in Chicago, another one's in Norfolk, another one's in 4 hours away. It's like, well, how are you managing all the kids and all the things? And I say, well, this is what I do. And so sharing those strategies. Brian Moran, the 12-week year, I recommend that to all my clients that have time management issues. But it gives them a lot of strategies that they can immediately incorporate and utilize to kind of help recoup that time because it's necessary. But
Yeah.
from an automation perspective, my business is completely automated. So I have a developer that I use for that, that keeps it maintained and make changes as I need it. But I'm open to that, if that makes any sense, which is
Yeah.
the way to go, for sure. But I don't gatekeep, so I share all of the things with them
Yes. I
on
love that.
how to create balance, right?
Yeah, and that is the balance is so important. I think so many people are lacking on that. Um, so I know that one of the reasons that we were so attracted to you as a guest and wanting to have you on is because you are great at giving really actionable advice. And so for our audience who are entrepreneurs, I'd love to hear 3 actions they can take in the next, say, 30 days to regain control and regain some clarity.
I'm really big on using plan of actions and milestones. I think I look at a lot of things in my life as a project, as I do with my clients. And what I find with a lot of entrepreneurs is they look at their businesses as hobbies. But once you're able to take your business goals and put them into clear outcomes, right, with deadlines and
Mhm.
um, milestones so that you can track them, it becomes a lot more manageable to execute. And so those are the 4 different things I tell my clients, like whether you're working with me for long term or short time, um, jumping into it and identifying the thing that you want to do, but then actually mapping it out to those 4 different things will like so beneficial in the long run. And the more you do it, the easier it gets for sure.
The easier it gets. Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know, the title of our podcast is Not Your Average CEO. Can you tell the audience what that phrase means to you?
I think in the past, at least for my age demographic, we thought of a CEO, we thought of a power player, someone who was a workaholic, someone who, you called all the shots, but you just never had time to do life. And I think in this day and time, you're not your average CEO. It's quite the opposite. You're still doing all the things, but you're doing it on your terms. And you're doing it, with that balance, without that burnout, so that you may be working from the beach in Jamaica or Barcelona, right? Depending on where you are.
Yes. Yes, that's the idea. Yeah, that's wonderful. So, as a final question, where can our audience members find you?
Sure. Chanda, 2 underscores, CO on social media, and chanda.co.com, chanda-co.com for a website.
Perfect. And we will include all of that in the show notes. So we will link all of that. And Chanda, thank you so much. It was so nice to speak with you. I feel like I learned a lot as well. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts Danielle Cuomo, CEO, and Nicole Glitchio Els, COO. This podcast has been sponsored by Virtual Assist USA. If you'd like to know more about the hosts or exploring virtual assistant services, visit virtualassistusa.com for more information.